How does that feel to be the king this time?
Honestly, I think we've earned that.
Right, so here I am with Carnage B from Karn&co, current Element 1 champion, looking to go into the repeat for Element 2, but I'm not here to talk about Element 2. I'm here to talk a bit more broad with one of the most long-standing players we have, particularly for Tier 2, let alone just NA as a whole. But first off, Karn, I want to start this off a little bit light. Are you aware that there is a old CS 1.6 player called Karn, but with a C?
No, I'm not actually.
Really?
That's funny.
He's actually a legendary Swedish player, so I'm kind of shook. I was about to ask, like, did you take inspiration from a name or anything?
No, I'm looking it up now, but no, I haven't.
Okay, so where
Oh,
where did
Karn with a
the
capital A, huh?
yeah, yeah, where did your name come from? Where did Carnage B come from, man?
Growing up, I was a big Marvel fan,
Oh, okay.
and I just loved the name Carnage in general.
Yeah.
Uh, the reason it has a K in it is because I couldn't on Xbox, I couldn't get any gamer tag with a C.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you
And
just
where
had
the
to make
B
the
originates from is from my first name, Brandon. That's where it originally originates from. But now that has spewed into
Carnage basketball.
basketball, fucking everything. So yeah, but the inspiration was because of that Marvel character, and I went from Havoc, another I think it's like an X-Men preference.
Yeah, yeah,
I just like those type of names, like those superhero villainy names. So that's what I went for when I was a kid, and I just stuck with it.
yeah. Not bad choices at all. Like you could go way worse than Havoc and Carnage. I'll say that much.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it could be Sneeze, you know?
damn, catching strays already. All right, so to jump into it, I want to start not quite at the beginning, not quite at year one, but kind of like 2022 era, because this is when I started following T2 way more closely than I had been. Like I've been watching Pro League since year one, season three, but and I was like aware of T2. I would watch Challenger League every now and again, and I knew you were there, like even during USN quals and all that stuff. But where I want to start is 2022 because this is where I started paying attention, and I feel like your reputation, at least from my understanding, was like really in a rough spot because Super put it on the desk during E1. Karn is a good IGL who's always had a lack of talent. Do you think, like, up until 2022, this was the accurate representation of where your career had been?
Um, First things first, I love all my old teammates. Everybody's grown with me, for me, and has grown myself. Um, but I do think if I had more pull, if you would say,
Yeah.
I definitely could have formed plenty of, if not a bunch of top tier teams.
Okay.
I used to get the shit under the stick, if you will.
Yeah.
One, a lot of my players would get poached. Like
Yeah.
one year, I had Pamba and Razor both went to Pro League.
That is a question on the docket. Do not worry.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like, yeah, I think that it was more so like a lot of people preferred to join other teams than my team because my team was honestly a lower echelon team in terms of our placings. We would always have a good fight. We would never like, besides a certain like, I got 7-0 once in a comp game,
Okay.
and that was like I played Cafe one time and we never played Cafe. Whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. But that was always what happened. Like I would always like I knew in my mind like what entry I wanted, what flex I wanted, but those guys would always be like, "No, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go." So yeah,
So it was kind of
definitely.
like finding diamonds in the rough from T3 and then also like making do with what you had effectively.
Well, yeah. I mean, I always had I was always cool with everybody for the most part.
Yeah.
Like everybody knew me. All the young kids knew me. I was cool with all like the young guns but everybody was already on established teams. So that's where I used to, and honestly, I think it's a blessing in disguise because I honestly wouldn't have wanted it any other way. But yeah, I definitely personally feel like if I had the choice to handpick any team, I would be able to make a top 2, top 3 team in T2 always.
Okay.
Whether that's today or 2022. I truly and firmly believe that. I think I can lead any guys that I feel like if the positioning is right, will be successful.
Right. And I did want to talk about like, all those talented individuals that you've found over the years, I've got a few of them listed because I wrote them down, and it feels like I'm looking at like a forceful 2.0 talent pipeline. You have Pamba, Diaz, Kino, Tra, Brios, Hat, CZ, and like there's a number of others as well, but those are just like the first handful listed, which on its own, that's an impressive list. And then you add in Packer and oh geez, he's escaping my name, but like
Packer, Tristan,
yeah,
Gomez, yeah. I've teamed with a a lot of people.
yeah. How do you
Um,
keep finding them and like enabling them to be this super like high level desired talent? Because that's a skill in and of itself. Is just finding these people and making them that good. Because there's a lot of people with unrealized talent out there, right?
I agree, but I will say first things first. Everybody that you pretty much I do team with, I've always believed in them, and I do think they have the talent to begin with. I do think a lot of people, even today in today's scene, if you think there's a lower echelon T2 player on the team that you got, like anybody that would think it's a lower team, that talent just needs to be fostered.
Okay.
So they need to just be guided in the right way. I think I work my ass off, and I think that kind of resonates. I put high standards on my teams. I want to practice. I want to practice the right way. I don't want to just go spawn kill every round because what does that really practice? Things like along these lines where it's kind of hard because the young kids they always how they are. They want to shoot people in game and kill them, and they think that's the right way to go. But this game is a lot more than that. And in terms of me, I feel like I think there's certain little qualities and certain positions like entering and hard breach and flexing that needs to be a quality for that player. So
Okay.
if I feel like somebody's lacking in that, I try to show them the right steps to get to that level, and I feel like it translates for the most part. But I do, I set a good amount of standards for my teams, and I feel like that resonates too.
Yeah, and so with that said, how do you kind of adapt to the different like players that you have? Because I will say it's all good to say like just put the right player in the right position, but play adapting to a Pambazoo versus a Brios or a CZ or a Hat, like they're all more entry related players nowadays, but not necessarily in their careers. I don't remember quite as well when CZ was on your team, but you look at Panbo versus a Brios or a Hat, they're more forward facing. How do you translate their different skill sets, even if they're playing the same quote unquote role?
Yeah, entering is I firmly believe is a mindset.
Okay.
If you want to entry, you have to be willing to take that space and be fearless in it of itself. Difference between like a first entry and a second entry. Second entry could have a better gun skill than a first, but the first is fearless and we'll just do that. We'll just go in a room and check every angle if they dive. I mean, a lot of the first entries I've worked with that have been successful, they have the gun skill to clear angles and literally poop on anybody they
Yeah.
shoot, so but I firmly believe it's a mindset, and the difference between like a first and second, the seconds prefer to be droned in a little more than first. That's where like that gap kind of
Okay.
builds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it but yeah, but you also gotta like I always think you have to have an identity on each team, how you want to play. Whether you guys like on defense want to sit behind shields and Jaeger or my, or we want to play more pushed up and trade out as a unit. You have to figure out if that's what you want your team to be or not.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to adapt. Like when Bryce was on my team, he was very young and didn't have no comp experience. And credit to Whitlock and Mikey, they would sit in video sessions after scrims and kind of break down with him, kind of the way I kind of think about things, because those I was with Mikey and Whitlock for
Yeah,
a shit ton of time. So
ages.
they everything that they've learned from me kind of would translate to him, and he left and he only grew from there. I mean, I don't think anything bad of Bryce. I think Bryce is a great player,
Yeah, he's
but
definitely like
he definitely has grown from my team to where he is now. He's definitely grown a lot, so that's good to see.
right. And so swapping it up a little bit, have you always been the IGL for all your teams? Did you start out as just like, oh, your average hard support player, your average entry or whatever, or were you always the IGL?
Ooh, for 2022, yeah, I've definitely have been, but I will say I've grown to be less strict in the way I want things to be done because I feel like, especially in this day and age, everybody should have a voice in the team.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to see everything that goes on. And once I've realized that, because it's a different style of siege anyway, it's not really throw two flashbangs here, we got to burn a shield here, and it's not the type of siege anymore. Like when SSG one invite. So
Yeah.
I always encourage my teams that everybody should have a voice, and if somebody calls it, whether it's anybody across the map, that you have to go and help that person and do as they say because they see a play that you don't. So
Right.
I will say I was a solo IGL, but I usually call like a little bit. I definitely want the beginning game plan laid out, give us a direction of what we want to accomplish. Mid round, it could be me, it could be Wi-Fi, it could be anybody on any team that I've been on that can call. More so other teams than others because some people are just not as vocal. But I definitely encourage that. Even in today's team, that's how I feel.
Got it.
How it should work.
I see. And so, in your opinion, what do you think the dynamic between an in-game leader and a coach should be? Should it be like the IGL kind of runs the show and the coach supports? Should it be more a symbiotic relationship, like a 50-50? Or, does a coach have all the authority and the IGL is just like the extension of the coach? Because, you see all kinds of different versions of the coach IGL dynamic across various esports and various teams. Like, what's your ideal coach IGL dynamic?
Um, I would say it's more 60-40 in terms of the IGL to coach
Okay.
per my team.
Hmm.
Because this team has lasted a long time without a coach, and it's kind of like somebody's coming in to support us.
I see.
I do think at the pro level, it's kind of the up flipped around. Like it should be 60-40 that way.
Okay.
Like a Canadian as opposed to Mint. Like should have that authority.
Yeah.
It's more of a professional level. But though just the way this team has worked on, where we've implemented Vivid, like he has a lot of say, but he doesn't have every decision to be made. It'll kind of be retrospective me and him collaborating, which I think is healthy. Um, I do think you don't want a tyrant coach. You don't want a coach to be like, oh, this guy's not working out, he should be dropped. I think that should always be a player's decision. As if players aren't comfortable with somebody or they think somebody's lacking, you guys should meet, you guys should talk. It shouldn't be a coach looking at numbers or he gets a report from his analyst. Oh, this guy's struggling -30. Like, no. I think a coach is there to coach. I don't think every roster move should be through a coach, but that's just how I feel.
Right.
I think a coach should be able to bring it up and players. He was like, how do you guys think about this? But it shouldn't be a solely based. Oh, I don't think this guy's working. Boom. Like I said, and the pro scene orgs give that to coaches sometimes, and that's just the wheel, or that's just the fortune they get. But hey, to
Yeah.
each their own, right?
And that does kind of raise the question because you mentioned stats fair briefly. What's your take on how stats should be used? Because you have some stats heads live and die by them, but other people like Cookies is a pretty infamous example. He doesn't like using the stats or like even looking at them. He'll just rely almost purely on his eye test. Like, where do you rate in the rank in the usage of stats?
Stats I think are good for. I think openings is very important. if you're a support player on defense and you have 9 opening deaths, you're obviously doing something wrong,
Yeah.
right? Um, I do think I don't know. I don't think Katie really plays a factor. If you lose a match 7-1, let's say, and your entry went 9-8, let's say he had a good game, but everybody else got absolutely wrecked. Your whole team did bad regardless.
Yeah.
You got your 1-for-1, but it didn't obviously open enough, you know. So I'm not a big guy on Katie. Katie. Excuse me. Katie's important, but it's not that important. I do think stats should be looked at objectively, like if I was in like cookies, say, but a lot of casters and stuff you see, they'll be like, oh, this is a impactless kill. Sometimes that is true, sometimes it isn't. But I think
Okay.
you just gotta look at them in certain ways. Openings, I think, is very important, like for your entry player, for your everybody else. If you're getting picked off too early, it's an issue. And cost I think is pretty big because you want to see that you're getting traded.
Okay.
Sometimes as an entry or a flex, you might go out your way to do a little ratty play, or you're going too far ahead of a drone. Sometimes that costs you, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if somebody's ahead of a drone, if they could have waited 2 seconds, because one, they buy the full rush, but if they waited 2 seconds, they could have got that information needed and stayed alive and maybe got a kill. So
Okay.
sometimes you gotta look at it, you gotta look at things like that.
I see. And how do you think how do you think an IGL's role in like finding a team should be? Because I know this is a very complicated position. You know, you're looked at in as the guy who's going to build up a team, as you've done successfully in T2 now. But it's also a position where it's like, you know, sometimes you get picked up just as an IGL. You don't get to bring up that team that you built around you. Like,
Hmm.
are there situations that an IGL shouldn't like accept the call to a pro league team or something? Like, or should they always just snap at any opportunity?
I'm a firm believer if you got a good enough pro league opportunity, it's worth it. Rather than if you're gonna join a team and not get paid, obviously that is not worth it. But in terms of an IGL, I think you have to just be willing to impose your culture, what you expect, what you want to be done. If you're expected to IGL a team that if obviously they're looking for an IGL, right, and they want you to try to do that.
Yeah,
Um, I think you just have to be willing to impose yourself in a correct way, obviously, and what you
yeah, yeah,
expect. You guys, that's just the culture you want to build because a lot of teams lack culture, I think. But I will say, I think if you do that and you're willing to expose yourself in that manner, but play it close to your chest, not get. I won't say punked, but you don't want to stray away from what you value.
yeah, yeah,
And sometimes some team, but as an IGL, as a leader these days, especially with how much the meta changes, you have to be willing to adapt. You have to be willing to take opinions. That's why I said like earlier, like you cannot be too strict.
yeah, yeah,
You might think like, oh, I want to put a shield here. It's the best shield in the game to hold this position. But somebody might have another opinion and they might play that position more than you. Like, hey, I've done this and this works better.
okay,
You have to be willing to take that on the chin and be adaptable and be a good teammate that way.
right.
That's how I look at things. In terms of like joining a team, I think you have to be willing to learn but you have to impose yourself as the leader slowly, obviously. You got to
Yeah.
gain everybody's trust, you know?
Is there a situation where an IGL should turn away from a team, even if it's a really good opportunity on paper? Like, assuming the org stuff is in order and you're not signing up
Hmm.
to get paid nothing, and it's just like, is there a team culture or a player culture that you should step away from or come into with some like precautions in mind?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you heard something about a player or something, but I also think you need to see with your own 2 eyes,
Okay.
right? You can hear something about, I don't know, like a Yardy being an asshole or a Sweater being lazy, but you might hear otherwise from his teammates, And if you're a real leader, you should be able to think of solutions to try to help alleviate that or pave the way on how to fix that issue, right?
Yeah.
And then If you don't think you can do that, then maybe that's not the right job for you. Maybe you're not even a leader enough. You never know.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, I do think you should understand what you're getting into, but you should take it with a grain of salt. I think that's the best way to put it, right?
I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to understand the situation. You have to understand. You might want to study the players' play styles a little bit before you go into that situation. But these are all things um that can be done, and if you're willing to do it, I don't see why you would not be successful.
I see. So it's just like doing your due diligence and being aware of the potential like hazards of
Exactly.
joining. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so talking about, just Karn&co the team for 2023, Element 1 is your first ever trophy, not only individually but for some of your players as well. Like Nick and Wi-Fi, it's certainly a big award and a big accomplishment. When did you realize that team went from like the low tier 2022 Karn&co slash unemployment team to a top T2 team that won a tournament?
Um, to be fair, I think it was more so when I got Wi-Fi, I knew that was a diamond in the rough.
Okay.
I knew so the funny thing is about Nick, we would try Nick out a lot of times for other positions. Like we tried him out for Packers position before.
Wow.
Because we didn't have Packer, obviously.
Yeah,
I'm not,
yeah.
I'm not saying like we were gonna drop Packer, but I'm saying like we were just like Nick was always on top of my list because Nick brought something communication wise that not a lot of people would bring to the table, and I always loved that about him. Sometimes it just didn't work out, but ultimately, the reason we got Nick was because I ended up dropping Mikey after our longest tenure. Love you, Mikey, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Um, just needed to be done. We needed to have a change.
Yeah.
But we ended up getting Packer when Mikey was on the team, and that kind of pulled the trajectory of our team in terms of me learning a little more on like different play styles. Packer was a winning player, with RTV, the different play styles, and I didn't restrict Packer. That was another thing.
Okay.
I let Packer be Packer, so that kind of opened my team up to success, I think,
Ah.
and allowed me to be a better leader in terms of you kind of just gotta let players be players, and you kind of you have to be willing to mold yourself around that, like you know. And when Nick came on, we eventually had the spot for Nick, and we were like, hell yeah, let's just pick up Nick. Oh, actually, it's because we had Silent.
Oh.
Silent ended up leaving for LG,
And that opened up the spot for Nick?
and that opened the spot for Nick. Yes.
I see.
And basically, so when we lost Silent George, that was a huge blow because he was like our fragger.
Yeah.
So we brought Nick on. Obviously, we knew Nick was going to be as talented as a fragger,
Yeah.
but Nick would always involve our players more. So
And that's
it
part
just
of the communication. It was like
exactly,
minus like a few percentage to the fragging, but plus to the
yeah.
communication.
Plus communication, plus vibes. Because
I
Silent
see.
at time, yeah, Silent at times would he'll be doing his own thing. But Nick, I was always cool with Nick. I would always, after hours, I'd be in Discord with Nick, playing ranked here and there, and we're always friends. So just the vibes just got a lot better with that change, and we became a lot better. Obviously, I mean, honestly, we had our rough edges. Like we had our rough time, as any team is to start. Starting a new team always sucks
Yeah.
because you don't know how people play. People don't know how you play. People don't know what you expect in that position, how to hold certain positions. Some people, you have to figure everything out. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and we really turned the corner when we lost that one game to
1 HP slash Karnageb?
yes, 1 HP Aimke's team.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we lost that game, we kind of really turned the corner and really like gave ourselves a good look in the mirror. Like, all right, like we're good, but we can't be losing to teams like that. And it also gave me a good hindsight because we lost that game 5-7, and I'll tell you this, fiends. I personally thought that was like the worst game I've ever seen that iteration of the team ever play, and we still lost 5-7.
Okay.
So that gave me a lot of hope. I was like, dude, if we're playing like this on our worst day, imagine on our best day, right?
Yeah.
So we really turned the corner there, and then we won our next match. I forgot who we played to make it the playoffs. Oh, it was Rivals team.
Yeah, it was
Hell of a
Slate.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Slate
was
gave you a
Slade.
run
Those
for
guys
your
were
money.
good.
That was an incredible match.
Yeah, that was a game that we didn't show them the respect they deserved. Honestly, we were like, yo, we'll win. Might be a little tough, but we're gonna win. And I'm pretty sure we went into border. We were
Yeah.
down like 1-5. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. And that was like a punch in the mouth. And that was another thing we needed. Like, all right, you have to respect your opponents.
Yeah.
Not that we didn't like respect. It was just more so we kind of looked over past it, and that was the wrong thing to do for the most part.
I see. And like the combination of that 1 HP game and that Slate game kind of prepped you guys and helped tighten up those gaps before playoffs.
Correct. And then
Uh,
when we got into playoffs, I prepped the fuck out of playing Outlast. I knew everything those guys did, and I knew they were overconfident in maps that they shouldn't be overconfident in. Like I think they were like 5-0 on Chalet at the time.
yeah.
People were banning it against them, and I watched it back, and I was like, these guys aren't that good at this map, man.
Oh
So
no.
I just broke it up, and yeah, we were way too prepared to play Alice, and in that dominant fashion of winning like that, um, playing the next the SSGA game with basically the LG guys, that was a kicks masterclass. He came out for blood, man,
Oh.
and Packer too.
Yeah.
Everybody was, we wanted that win more than basically almost any other game. Like we wanted to win that game, so.
Yeah.
Much love to those guys. Those LG guys they're really good. But we wanted it.
Yeah.
And we knew that those guys weren't really a team, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They got forwards right before the season. They had great players, but we were a team. Like we were practicing months before that, so we knew like we have to lay that on the table.
Yeah. It's
And
kind of like
yeah,
the talent couldn't overcome the structure of a team in that sense. Like you might have the individuals, but we have the team.
yeah, but it was more so for them. They didn't really have that crazy team dynamic that they can bounce off each other. Like
Okay.
if what I'm trying to say is like those guys like if they're in a hole, they'll resort to spawn peeking and 50-50 stuff. If
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't work on game day, then you lose in the round because it's on game day. You get punished for that type of stuff. So
Right.
yeah, we just knew those guys were definitely on paper probably more talented than us. Maybe besides like Packer and maybe myself versus Mohis. All respect to those guys, but we thought we matched up well, and then. Grand finals. That was just grand finals, man. We had the community on our back with that one.
Yeah.
Truthfully,
Like, dude, what kind of mental fortitude does it take to stay in a game for a reverse sweep? Especially because I want to say Oregon was map 4 and you were down 6-1 or something with a TK. Like, how do you stay in it after that?
so yeah, like the Oregon attack half, we were very close, but they were etching out rounds. Um, but we knew on that split if we get one, we'll be okay because we're really good at defense.
Okay.
And then we lost our first defense, lost that. Now you're down 6-1. But honestly, man, I think the vibe of the team was super fantastic. We honestly didn't show that we were beatable mentally within ourselves
Yeah.
in terms of like how we're talking to each other. We didn't let ourselves sound defeated, and we're like, man, we're just gonna go one round at a time. We're on Oregon defense. Like this is the best at the time. This is the best defensive map in the game. Well, let's just do it. And then when the TK happened, in your mind, you're like, oh man. But then I'm pretty sure Nick went huge that round.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Nick, I think he had like a 1v2. And then that just propelled us in terms of momentum.
Yeah.
And then we just started trickling down. We got first pick here, and that's just, yeah, that was it. That map was crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
It was an insane one to watch. I rewatched it a while ago for. I think at this point I'm just gonna say it like that Element One video. It's still coming out. I swear. I swear. It's like 99% done. It's coming out. So I had to rewatch the finals, and that organ was insane.
Yeah, I gotta watch it back myself. It's been a while, man.
Yeah,
But
but now Element Two, like we're here. You had to make some changes because you lost some players to Pro League, which it happens, and you've brought in some pretty good replacements. Like I'm always gonna back Giddy, and then Tristan is no slouch. With this new team, are you ready to take the crown a second time?
I lost Pro League level players and brought Pro League level players back. Um, the Nick situation was it wasn't we didn't want it initially.
Yeah,
It happened because he needed to quit and do IRL stuff. And you have to respect that family comes first always. I always
hundred
tell my
percent.
guys that, if you have something family related, you got to do what you have to do.
Yeah,
I know he's back,
yeah.
and if I see him on the battlefield, it is war. Okay?
All
I'm
right.
not gonna take it easy on Nick, but I love Nick. Nick knows that. But yeah, man, Gideon and Tristan have been a pleasure, man. They've, you know, so it's obviously a different iteration of my past team.
Yeah,
Um, but this team feels better and better every day. Personally, we're very willing to work out iron stuff out and learn together. And I couldn't be happier with the replacements we had, to be that. Obviously, I miss Packer and I miss Nick, but we all have to move on in life, and
yeah.
that's just what it is.
Right. And talking about Element 2 a little bit, like, you guys are coming in as the king this time. You're not coming in as, like, this mid to lower level T2 team in the eyes of everyone else. This time, you're the king. The target's on you firmly. Like, I know Nick's team with Rice and Nation also has some eyes on them, and there's rumors about what could be happening with roster changes for some other teams. But from everyone I talk to, you're at the top of the list as like this is the team to beat. How does that feel to be the king this time?
Honestly, I think we've earned that. I think we put the time in, and we deserve that respect. Um, as I always respect my other opponents. I don't care if you're the eighth seed, if you're the ninth seed. I always will respect you as an opponent, and I think we've earned that. I'm not shy to it. I know
Yeah,
we feel like we're the best team. We feel like we should be in Pro League. Um, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. Obviously, when we play, it'll be a little extra motivation for other people, but you best believe it'll be a lot of motivation for us because if we want to win and we want to make it to Pro League, so I say bring it on. I ain't scared of it. But yeah, I think wholeheartedly we've earned that. So, I like I said, I respect all of my opponents. I wish everybody the best, but when we're on the when we're playing, bring your best because I'll be bringing my best.
all right. And then final question here before I give you the floor. Now that you're in this position where you guys are a pro league level team, and there is no relegation, you're almost in a feeder spot where you're just going to constantly feed talent and players to these pro league teams as they're seeking to do the 10 billionth shuffle. You know, what are your thoughts on like having to consistently cycle out players and find new talent? Do you need, or do you think that there needs to be an avenue for like whole teams to get called up? Like if only to keep the top teams honest, and maybe like NA, maybe we weren't sending our best to Atlanta. Like is this the case, or am I mischaracterizing the situation of like T1 and the state of things?
Um, I think it's very justified. I think we have lost plenty of avenues to get into T1, like relegations. The problem with that is like you give the or not ors, but you give the pro league teams um a safety blanket.
Yeah,
They're allowed to just chill and know they're not going to lose their jobs. Maybe the super low performing ones, yeah, they'll lose their jobs, but the other guys, they're chilling. They get complacent.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't. I always felt like relegation should have been kept, but I understood in a business model, it's hard, right? So
yeah.
I understood that. Um, Yeah, I do. First, I think they should make the league 10 teams. I think there should be a lot more LCQs for everything. SI should have an LCQ.
100%. 100%.
Um, Probably can't have an LCQ, but they should be more of at least a relegation in terms of like the org is not replaced, but the roster might be replaced. That would be
Oh,
interesting,
okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is this is what I always said. Like you can like the new talent is undeniable. There's always going to be a lot of new talent. Whether it's I mean it might not be me because I'm the old head around, right? But
Yeah.
I do think my players especially deserve always a shot, and sometimes, and don't get me wrong, like my players are definitely getting looked at. That's great, and I love that for them.
Yeah.
But as a unit, we should be being looked at more, and I think we've earned that. I think we deserve that, and I do think, yeah, like I said, I think that would be interesting. Else more SQ spots, a little maybe more minors, who knows? But that's
We can only
that's out of
hope.
my
We can only
realm,
hope.
yeah. But I do think SI should always have an LCQ. That's kind of bogus that they don't.
Honestly, at this point,
Um,
it's a tradition. Like, especially for
yeah.
NA, we get the LCQ buff. Like, why are you're nerfing us, dude?
Bro, a lot of LCQ team like Los came from their LCQ to this major, made second.
Yeah.
TSM that won SI LCQ, they won the whole damn thing. So it's like, what's the problem? I don't. There's no problem with LCQs. I think it's more so for the business aspect, which hey,
It is what
whatevs.
it is.
But T2 definitely needs more avenues to get into the top tier scene. Um, And I think we're on the right track for the most part. In terms of like what everybody else could do, the E2 is beautiful. XGS does a wonderful job. We're getting decent more exposure. Now it's more so we need more opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't really know how that would be done, but I do think that little relegation thing would be very smart.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then to round things out, to end it, Carnage B, is there anything you want to say? Anyone you want to shout out, like throughout your career, like just in the moment? Anyone at all? Like, floor is yours.
Yeah, first things first, love my damn team that I have now. We should be in Pro League. We should at least get a chance. Any org, you know? Any org looking for a roster or looking to enter, we should be very high in that list. Um, all my old teammates, Packer and Nick, we won a championship together, and that will be with me forever. Mossy, my coach Vivid, fantastic supporting staff. I couldn't ask for anything better. And to all the fans, man, and any real fans out there that have been supporting me since forever, even the new ones, I always see it. I always try to respond or at least give it a like on Twitter. I try my best to, I try to engage.
Yeah.
Um, and I always will say if you were part of my journey that I will always appreciate you. Big shout out to my old lasting teammates. Like Mikey was hell of a teammate, Whitlock, Zeno, everybody,
Yeah.
all my guys, they know who they are. And all my, you know, all my past teammates always love. Ain't nothing wrong with anybody.
Yeah.
Besides one, which I won't get into. But
Oh boy.
yeah, I
All
won't get
right.
into that one. But I love everybody, and here's to another E2 season.
All
Hopefully we
right.
bring it home for everybody.